Revelation of Clay, Part 4, Journey. So this is going to be a 48-hour sprint to the International Peace Gardens. That's kind of a long journey. I'm going to try to speed through it fairly quickly so that this video doesn't last forever. And I'll slow down on spots where on major points of interest. Not that they're not all fairly interesting to me, anyways, but I'd like to. Going through this, I realize that it's kind of long. So what I want to point out is that this journey started with me poking in the coordinates to the crossroads and following it based on what's given here, or I should say, given in the GPS, and only few times along the way where I felt compelled to do something else did I change course. And it wasn't very much, but it was pretty much go to point A, get to point A, put point B in, go to point B, do point B in the GPS, go to point C, and just follow it as I go. Right? So it wasn't a planned out trip. Timing wasn't planned. Nothing was planned except for go there first, then go there. So away we go. May 8th. So we ended the last video on May 7th. Gonna leave. I packed my stuff up, got everything ready. And when I say packed up, I packed up the basic necessities. I threw a small tent, some basic camping gear, and because I really didn't know how long I was going to be gone. I told the boys that I was going on a spirit journey and wasn't sure when I would be back, but that it shouldn't take more than a couple of weeks. I didn't know, but to be honest, I didn't know for sure how long I was going to be gone. So I pulled Becky aside and I told her that I wasn't even sure that I was going to be back. You know, I don't know what to expect. So the next morning I was ready to go when the boys left for school. However, I had a very uneasy feeling in my spirit about leaving. So I took the time, I sat down, I prayed for guidance and understanding, and I meditated for quite a while to get a feel for what I needed to do. And it came to me that I needed to wait for them to come home and say a proper goodbye, whatever that meant. You know, give them a hug, make sure that they're comfortable, and we'll go. So the boys arrived home around 3 p.m. I gave everyone a big hug, said goodbye, and I walked out the door. My youngest son, Ryan, who's 7 years old, was very nervous about me leaving, and he walked me out to the car, and he stood there in the driveway and watched as I pulled out and drove away. It left me with a heavy heart, but nonetheless, I had to make the trip. So I pulled out of the driveway at 4 p.m. and off I went. I got on I-90 East in Schaumburg from Roselle Road, follow I-355 south to I-57 south. So I'm going to give you the direction I went. First day, about 3 to 4 hours, I was 3 hours in it, about 7 p.m., I cross Effingham, Illinois, where the cross at the crossroads is. It's I-57 and I-70 intersect. The cross is 198 feet tall and 113 feet wide, forged out of over 180 tons of steel, which I thought was cool because I'm going to the crossroads. I've got the cross on my mind, and there's this monster cross that kind of welcomes me on the journey to a degree, right? So it was cool. Look it up. It's pretty neat. About 15 miles from the giant cross, I passed through Clay County. Another interesting coincidence. So I figured I'd share that. About 20 miles from Clay County, or I should say about a little ways after passing Clay County, I had to go to the restroom. It sat on me, and it sat on me hard. A strong urge. And with just under half a tank, I was forced to make my first rest stop. As I approached the exit 116 off of Interstate 57, I saw a sign indicating I was in Salem, Illinois. Salem! I was forced to make this rest stop in Salem. All right, another good coincidence. I stopped at Phillips 66 station on the corner of Route 50 and North Holtz Road. I filled up the car and picked up a bag of tortilla chips to serve as unleavened bread to go with the bottle of Barefoot Cabernet I brought. Back on the road, continue on to exit 54B from 57 South to Illinois 13 West, take North Giant City Road, and US 51 South, follow Old US Highway 51 to West McGuire Road and South Poplar Camp Road. So we made it to the destination at 10 p.m. Turning on Salem Road, I followed the curve. Around until I got to the end, and I came to a gate. The gate was open, but there was a no trespassing sign, and it was dark. It was late at night, and there was a house over here. Not sure what was back here. I didn't feel comfortable trespassing. And given where I was, or where I am, I felt trespassing is not appropriate. So I made my way back up the road about 100 yards and parked the car at the end of South Poplar Camp Road. And it's a right-of-way that runs straight down. So you could, I was able to, where there were monster trees on either side, this right-of-way with the power lines coming down through opened up the sky and made it so that so it was a nice place to sit and park for a little bit. I got out of the car, took the bread and wine, and gave thanks to the Lord for his sacrifice. Then I was compelled, while doing this, I heard spYaHdr. Or it wasn't a drop, it spill some. Right, okay, all right. Well, why not? And I've never done anything like that before. So I spYaHdr, and it brought to mind how the Passover, where they took the lamb's blood and did a tav mark on the doorposts, so that with the Passover lamb blood. I then sat back down in the car with the windows and sunroof open, said a prayer, praying and meditating for about half an hour, when I heard something next to the car. So I looked out my window, and there's a black cat sitting there, which once it saw me move, it took off running. The night was, what did I have? A final quarter moon night, which was very, like, just a sliver of moonlight left. So it was pretty dark, and I was able to make out a lot of the stars. When the cat got my attention, I got out of the car, and I looked up at the night sky, and as soon as I looked up, I saw a star. I saw a light. I call it a star, right? A traveling star or something. It kind of reminded me of a satellite. It was going from south to north. Maybe it was satellite, I don't know. But it went so fast. It went from one end of the sky to the other in less than a minute. You know, it was moving. And I after seeing that, I took a moment and was kind of watching in the direction that it went, and a meteor fell and burned up in the atmosphere. Oh, that's pretty cool, you know, this star and a meteor. Maybe that means something. I don't know. I had the black cat star, the meteor. I'll put those in the back of my head, and we'll come at that later. So I continued watching the sky for about another half an hour longer, and nothing was happening. And then I felt compelled to move on to the confluence. Let's drive down to the confluence and bless the river. So the idea was to go down there to say blessings for the river, and then head to, follow the river from the confluence up to Itasca. I set the course for Cairo in Little Egypt to follow it to its blessings in Lake Itasca. At 12 a.m., I arrived at the confluence. It's interesting that when you drive in and out of Cairo, you drive through Future City. I mean, that there's a lot behind that in the if you go and look it up, it's interesting information. But it's I still find it funny. Future City, No, anyways. So I stopped briefly, said a prayer asking for the Lord's blessings on the river, and then poked in the next destination, which is Itasca, which drove me across the river at Lake Gerardo, and I was on my way. Off we head. On my way, I put these things down again, kind of like the eagle. Don't know if it means anything, but I saw 4 different animals in fairly quick succession, and it pretty much the only time I saw them during any animals during the whole drive. So I'm not sure if it meant anything or not, but I saw a deer, then I saw a raccoon, and then I saw a coyote, and then I saw a either an owl or a hawk, which the hawk it almost flew right in front of the car, which all of it cool. What was really interesting is these things happened just before I went through Olive Branch, which was between Cairo, Illinois, and Lake Gerardo, or Cape Girardeau, sorry. I find it interesting, Olive Branch. With everything else, these things, some of these things have hard points on a direction of thought. I arrived in Cape Girardeau around 1:30 a.m. I pulled into the parking lot next to the levee, reclined the seat, and I took a nap. I went back later and into Google and looked up the area, and I found, to kind of show where I was parked, and that's where I was parked. That even kind of looks like my car, but I parked there. I woke up just before daybreak, about 4 a.m., set the GPS for Lake Itasca, and started driving up I-55. A little after 5, the day began to break, and I stopped at a St. Louis bread company in Festus to get some coffee. While I was getting coffee, it started to rain. And I noticed as I was getting back on the freeway that there was a sign for the Trail of Tears. And my spirit was moved. I felt heaviness, and it was impressed upon me that the Lord was crying out for his people. As I drove into St. Louis, it was 8 a.m., so there was heavy traffic. There was a lot of traffic on the roads, and the sky had grown quite a bit darker, and it was about to let loose as I was passing by the arch. And as I passed the arch, the bottom started to come out of the clouds and started to pour. So I took a moment, and I really didn't want to be in that kind of, I didn't want to be traveling in that like that the whole way there. And so I figured, let's pray for this. Let's say a prayer and ask for, so I prayed, Father, worthy of all praise and worship, if it be your will, please keep my way safe and clear. And at that moment, I drove past a car with the license plate that said, I'm not sure if it said Prodigy or Prodigal. I'm not sure. I thought it was an interesting coincidence. And I wanted to share it, especially given the next event. So as soon as I saw that, I looked up, and the rain lightened and I want to say not just on me, but it was still like, it's almost like I drove out of the rain into a tunnel. It was crazy. But the rain was behind me, and it was behind me the whole way. It's almost like it was still raining on my back window, but my front window stayed clear. It wasn't exactly like that, but it was very close to that. When I say it was raining, because I still was getting sprinkles and stuff on my front window, but behind me it was pouring. Each turn as I was going would appear as though it was going to turn back into the storm. But not once did I ever leave the tunnel. And finally, I exited the storm into a clear blue sky. I thanked the Father for his grace and blessings and spent the next several hours while driving, praying and meditating on the things that I've seen and been shown so far. Uh, I think that it's worth noting that and these are pictures that I took, but just because it struck me. I'm like, wow, how do I share? I got to take a picture. So anyways, this final picture that I took as I was getting ready to leave, I didn't really notice it at the time, but now it is final right turn. There's something about the right, which maybe I'll share. I don't think I'm gonna share it yet, but a right turn out of darkness. All right, righteousness, right turn. Along the way, I passed through many farmlands. My spirit was moved to remember all of the many crop losses that have been happening around the world with all the major hail and the insect infestation, which is about to get worse. And it's put on me that much of the world is approaching famine. We've been well blessed, and if we're lucky, we'll be blessed again this year. But know that famine is coming. So I asked the Lord's blessings on the farmlands as I was passing. They were beautiful, and I enjoyed it. And may we have a bountiful harvest. So again, I pray, Lord, this year, may we have a bountiful harvest, please. I arrived at Lake Itasca just as the sun began to set. The gate was not manned, and I did not intend to stay for long. I just wanted to drive down. I just wanted to take a quick look, say a blessing, and hit the road and keep moving. So I didn't pay my entry fee. I went down there, made a quick visit, blessed the waters, and then hit the road. I drove up Highway 2 to Grand Forks, North Dakota, and checked into La Quinta Inn on Garden View Drive, where I spent the night. The next morning, I found the hotel complimentary breakfast. It smelled good, and my stomach rumbled, and I was trying to do a fast and continue on a long journey fast, but I saw that all of my favorites, and I cratered. So I gave thanks. I said, thank you for giving me this wonderful breakfast, and I broke my fast. After breakfast, I went back to the room, pulled out the Gideon Bible out of the drawer, and did a random passage search, and I pulled 2 Samuel 22 for my first reading, and then Deuteronomy 32 for my second reading. I'm not going to read those to you now. That would take up a lot of time, but if you want to pause, go read them, come back. There is some to it that it kind of adds to the overall things that are going on, but I don't feel compelled to read it to you. So look it up after, read it. We're moving on. I loaded the car, put my next destination is Turtle Mountain Heritage Center. I wanted to stop in at the Heritage Center and see if I could find any elders or find out where I could find the elders. I wanted to go talk to the Chippewas. I mean, the Chippewa was on my brain for a long time, and that's what's led me to Turtle Mountain. So I wanted to see if I could find the elders. So I'm going on next to the Heritage Center. GPS, let's go. On my way out, I stopped at Tim Hortons on the corner for coffee and a Cenex station to fill the gas tank. Then I hit the road. As I was driving down Highway 2, about 20 miles, interesting, I'm going to point this out now because it plays more again later, 220. It won't mean anything for a while, but it will later. Out of Grand Forks, I drove past Turtle River State Park. With my destination being Turtle Mountain, I was strangely compelled to turn around and go check out Turtle River. Let's go check out Turtle River. You know what? I'm in no hurry. Let's go. All right. So I turned around and drove back to Turtle River, and stopping at the visitor center, I paid the $7 day fee, bought some trinkets for the boys, a red ladybug for Gavin, a blue turtle for Kyle, and a green turtle for Ryan. I drove through the park, keeping right on the road until I came to Turtle River, which is where I took a picture while recording a short video. So that's the picture, and I'll play the video for you. We are driving through Turtle River State Park. It's pretty. I think this must be Turtle River. Turtle River. Turtle River. I don't know if I'm coming in on that or not. You get that? On our way to Turtle Mountain. Just driving down the road, saw this. We're in North Dakota. Saw the Turtle Mountain State Park. Just had the feeling I needed to stop in here and pay my respects. Thinking of the boys. Love you guys. Picked up a few trinkets for them. Lots of love. See you soon. After taking a picture of Turtle River, I continued around until I came to a small watershed ravine. I recognized the ravine immediately from the vision. Of course, those pictures are going to remind you because I took the pictures when I was there, but bear with me. I then noticed a small tree with the new leaves standing before it. I stopped, took a picture of the ravine, but felt compelled to continue on to the Peace Gardens. So there's more to this, which we'll cover in the return. But it's interesting to note here, before we get to the next slide, that I knew that I was drawn to this spot, or I was told about this spot in my vision. So it felt weird at that point to be compelled to push on, because it's kind of like, this is where you're going. I'm here, but why am I leaving? But I knew I had to keep going. I made a mental note that I had to return to this spot. I continued on out of Turtle River State Park and got back on Highway 2. I arrived in Devil's Lake, about 69 miles from Turtle River. 69. I arrived at Devil's Lake and was compelled to stop and take a picture. It wasn't until I was putting this stuff together that I went back and when I was pulling the picture that I realized what time the picture was taken. And it's taken at 12:22:01, 69 miles from Turtle River. What does that remind me of? That reminds me of my birthday, 12/22/69. So are you saying that I arrived in Devil's Lake at 12/22/69? Keep that in your mind. "20 minutes later, or about 19.9 miles later, I passed out of Devil's Lake and exited onto 281 at Church's Ferry. I'm going to share with you some interesting notes here. So Strong's 281 is amen in Greek, and in Hebrew it is brother or worshiper of Yah. So you can say the quickest way to the Peace Garden from Devil's Lake was to take Church's Ferry. Amen, brother. After exiting Church's Ferry on my way to Turtle Mountain Heritage Center, I passed through Maza, Candu, Rock Lake, Rolla, and Bellacourt. So just throwing all those in there real quick. I arrived at the Heritage Center at 2 p.m. and it was closed. Next to the Heritage Center was the Sky Dancer Casino, which I had decided was not where I was supposed to be going. Although I did think very briefly about going in and talking and seeing if I could find any information out about the elder stuff of that nature. But I'm not going in the casino. Sorry. So I decided to continue on to the Peace Garden and come back to the Heritage Center another day to see if I could catch it open. So I set my next destination for International Peace Gardens and left the casino behind. As I turned onto 281, just past the Heritage Center and casino, I noticed the Crossroads C-Store. Oh, that's interesting. Crossroads. That keeps popping up. So I felt obligated to take a picture of it. It just struck me, so I took a picture of it. It's quaint, right? A little bitty thing. You could tell the old pumps and little tiny store. It was neat. I continued to travel 281, and just before I reached the International Peace Gardens, I saw a sign that read Crossroads Range. Again, that Crossroads. I made a mental note of it and headed on to the border of U.S. and Canada. I also want to point out that between the Heritage Center and the border crossing was 28.1 miles on 281. Interesting. It wasn't until approaching the Peace Gardens that I realized that I actually had to leave the U.S. to get to it. International. Hello. Wake up, McFly. I did not realize I was going to be leaving the States, so I did not bring my passport. I hesitated and pulled over as I considered what I should do. Should I take a chance? Head home? Or maybe find a place to stay while I try to figure out what to do next. I decided that I came this far. There was no other option but to find out what will happen. I'm taking the chance. So I drove through, past the U.S. checkpoint, and into international territory, and entered the International Peace Gardens. So that's it for the journey. We covered that fairly quickly. I got through it quicker than I thought I would. But remember, Jesus is the key. Put the key in. Flip everything on its head. Don't think you know everything. Forget what you know. Let it be retaught to you. And remember that your words reveal your heart. Do not allow your emotions to rule your speech. Hold your tongue and ask for God's guidance. Be patient and allow Him time to speak through you. When you respond with your emotions, it's not from God, but it's your vanity speaking. And it's by that you will be judged. I want to share also that it is this loop within us. When I say you will be judged by your actions, it's because it's your judgment that gets turned back onto you. You judge yourself and you portray it on other people. Be aware. Question everything with an open heart. Don't think you know anything. Unlearn what you have learned. Weigh everything on the balance of love. So I get a piece of information. Does it sit well with me? Yes or no? How does it sit? Does it float? Always seek and speak the truth. And note that there are a lot of theories that people throw around as fact. Start separating out the theories. Let go of the theories and let facts begin to build on themselves. Become one with the holy word of truth. The holy word of truth. In love, and find peace. And with love in your heart, take the gift of salvation. Walk in peace, girded in truth and righteousness, shielded with faith, and speak with the flaming sword of the Spirit of truth. End of part 4, Journey. Next, part 5, Peace Garden.